busted for selling weed.
Man, people will do anything to try and get a vote nowadays. I'm good. Hey, what's up? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm 2T's.
A mayor in Olive Hill, Kentucky named Danny
Spark
Sparks.
it up!
Gosh, you're so corny. He was arrested for selling marijuana.
He has since stepped down from his position, calling what he did a mistake.
Here are the facts.
Danny Sparks was caught by an undercover police officer in the parking lot of an elementary school.
Sparks was charged with possession and trafficking weed within 1,000 feet of a school.
Arrested with Sparks was an unidentified man who cops claimed had a personal relationship with the mayor.
Sparks also claimed that this was the first time doing something like this and that he hoped he and the city could move on from the incident.
Those are the facts. I mean, he did step down, which kind of proves that he's guilty.
This dude literally made mistake after mistake. There's almost too many to list.
But we're gonna try to anyway.
Let's break it down.
Not only is Danny Sparks a terrible mayor, but he's a terrible criminal.
You're on the damn city council. What if someone like Celia walked by?
First off, Danny, your town, Olive Hill, has only 1,800 people in it. How did you manage to get caught by the only undercover cop this town has?
You the mayor! Like, were you that busy putting medical weed in jars not to notice the cop's fake mustache?
Hello, my good man. I've heard some great things about what you're selling. Can I get a package of the weed?
Cynthia?
No, my name is Clint. I'm not an undercover cop. This is not a fake mustache. I'm just here walking.
Looks fake to me.
Selling weed behind an elementary school? Aren't you the one who's supposed to know that this is illegal? There wasn't a Walmart or Dunkin' Donuts nearby that you could slang?
You the mayor, the leader. Everybody knows the leader never steps in the battle. Send the flunkies. Have you never seen The Wire?
So I'm lieutenant now?
Yeah, you my lieutenant.
Maybe it's the town's fault. That's right, Olive Hill. Maybe if you paid your mayor a little bit more, he wouldn't be selling weed next to kids.
Who smokes the blunts? We smoke the blunts. Rolling blunts and smoking.
Also, Danny, if you're gonna be bold enough to sell weed in the parking lot of a school, don't bring along a man you may have a personal relationship with. I can't imagine the town of Olive Hill, Kentucky being able to handle both of those bombshells.
Like, he did all of this so badly that I'm starting to really think maybe this was his first time. Either that, or he's literally the dumbest person ever.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Danny, if you're gonna sell weed and get caught, don't apologize for it. Just own up to it.
Look at D.C. Mayor Marion Barry. He got caught with crack and a prostitute in a hotel room.
And he got reelected. What do you think are some bigger mistakes Danny could have made?
Let us know in the comments below. Also, hey, subscribe right up top.
I'm John Scarlett.
I'm Cynthia Luciette. Thanks for watching Breakdown.
Good evening, everybody. Acting on a hunch pays off for officers responding to a routine break-in call.
It didn't pay off for 24-year-old Darren Dirks, who now faces 29 child pornography charges. Local 12's Joe Webb joins us live from Newport with how this all came together. Joe.
Well, Cammie, Darren Dirks has been locked up here in Newport since September 5th for burglary, but the way he acted that day got Campbell County Police thinking and investigating. Now he's facing those 29 child pornography counts. And here's how it all went down.
At 4 a.m. on September 5th, Campbell County Police were dispatched to a burglary called in from Dave Joe Drive outside Cold Spring.
What they found out was a female juvenile stated a male was in her bedroom and she awoke to him in the bedroom.
The man had run off, so a Newport police dog was brought in. The dog tracked him to an apartment 2 blocks away. There, police found 24-year-old Darren Dirks. Dirks admitted he entered the girl's apartment and ran off. He was charged with burglary and taken to the Campbell County Detention Center. But police were suspicious. Dirks admitted he broke in, but he didn't take anything. They got search warrants for his phone.
We were wanting to know what he did while he was in the residence, which led to our reasons for searching devices. And upon these searches, we were able to locate 29 images that we believe are child pornography. We don't believe any of these images are local victims.
Darren Dirks is now charged with burglary, voyeurism, and 29 counts of possessing matter portraying a sexual performance of a minor. Chris Raw was a neighbor, he's a grandfather, and says he's grateful that Dirks is off the street.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I've lived here all my life. I'm 54. I grew up a few miles down the road, and I've lived around this area all my life. And, you know, I always considered this Mayberry, so you don't like to see that in Mayberry.
Now, once again, police say that none of the images in Darren Dirks's that were on Darren Dirks's phone were of local children. They do not believe that he was creating the pornography. They just believe that he had it on his phone. They also don't believe he was part of some bigger ring. Cammie?
Creepy guy. Joe Webb, thank you. Dirks is held on a $20,000 cash bond.
Prescription drug abuse has become an epidemic in America. Few places have been hit harder than Kentucky, a state that's also been ravaged by addiction to crystal meth. In Whitley County, Kentucky, in the heart of Appalachia, matters were made worse when the man suspected of being at the center of the drug trade was the county's top law enforcement officer, Sheriff Lawrence Hodge. There had long been suspicions that Sheriff Hodge was dirty, but nobody, not even federal agents, could prove it. That's when two local journalists, both in their 20s, launched their own investigation. And they soon discovered poking into the affairs of a powerful county sheriff can be risky business.
The story will continue in a moment.
You know, you're 20 years old, you're taking a shower one day and getting ready for class, and you get a call from a federal agent because there's a credible threat against your life. Everything about it's just so surreal, you know, you don't think a whole lot about it. Then later that night, you know, you start thinking, you're like, geez, somebody wants to kill me. That's a little odd. And it's the sheriff. The sheriff wants to kill you.
This wasn't exactly how Adam Salfridge had pictured a career in journalism. Adam was born and raised in Whitley County. In 2009, he was a sophomore at the local college, needed a job. The county's daily newspaper, the Times-Tribune, had an opening, and soon Adam had his first assignment, and dangerous enemies.
Why did you feel compelled to buy a gun?
You do have a credible threat against your life. And it seemed like a pretty reasonable thing to do. Samantha also purchased a gun at the same time.
Samantha Swindler, then 27, was managing editor of the Times-Tribune and Adam's boss.
We were reporting on people involved in the drug trade. And people who are all hopped up on oxys, I don't know what they're going to do. I thought if something happened, I'd go down with a fight.
Samantha was exotic by Whitley County standards. Born in New Orleans, educated in Boston. She tangled with public officials as editor of a small newspaper in East Texas. She saw familiar signs in Whitley County.
There are problems in this community with the good old boy system, corrupt politics, that kind of thing.
It seems to me in many ways that this community's strength was also its weakness in some ways. This is a nice, polite place where people have polite conversation.
People are very proud here, and it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing in the way that it doesn't allow you to see the things that need change.
Whitley County, Kentucky, population 35,000, is tucked in the state's southeast corner on the border with Tennessee. People here take pride in the natural beauty of Cumberland Falls and in historic Sanders Cafe, birthplace of Kentucky Fried Chicken. There is also poverty. The median income is $26,000. Drug addiction is rampant. Throughout the region, red signs identify homes once used as meth labs. And then there is prescription drug abuse. Oxycodone flows in so freely they call this stretch of I-75 the pill pipeline. In 2002, Lawrence Hodge was elected sheriff of Whitley County on the promise he'd clean it up. The sheriff's raid on one meth lab was covered by the local CBS affiliate.
When I knocked on the door, the smell was already knocking me down. We're glad to shut it down. It put a dent in our drug problem here.
But early in his tenure, there were rumors. Talk around the county, the sheriff had gone bad.
From about 2004, he just went downhill and was corrupt, involved with drug dealers, taking payoffs, extorting money from defendants.
Todd Tremaine, a special agent with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, says the FBI and state police tried building a case against Sheriff Hodge, but couldn't penetrate his inner circle of drug dealers, crooked politicians, and police officers.
He was very insulated.
What do you mean insulated?
There was a lot of fear of what Lawrence might do if they cooperated with the federal agents or the state police.
He was untouchable.
Yes.
Editor Samantha Swindler had heard similar stories and suspected Sheriff Hodge might have a weakness, a paper trail. So she checked the department's evidence log.
There were months where nothing was checked in. I knew that this wasn't right because we had arrests every day in this area, particularly related to drugs. And when it's related to drugs, you know there's probably a gun, and it wasn't there.
But to mount a serious investigation of the sheriff, Samantha needed help.
Why would you hire a 20-year-old, his only journalism experience was working on his high school newspaper?
Well, when you say it like that.
Oh, it's true.
Well, he was smart, and he knew about the community, and he cared about local government.
My aunt overdosed, and the first question I had was, I wonder if she got her drugs from somebody that the sheriff was, protecting.
Adam went to work, combing through years of case files. He noted arrests where drugs and weapons were seized by the sheriff's department and should have been logged. It was tedious and time-consuming.
At that point, I was working up to like 70 hours a week. It was insane, and it wasn't healthy, but I was, just driven. I knew I was onto something, and I couldn't stop.
What he was onto was a series of felony cases involving guns and drugs in which deals were cut and sentences mysteriously reduced. What's more, the defense attorney in each case was Sheriff Hodges' close friend, Ron Reynolds. One case involved this man, Rick Benson, a retired social worker. In May 2004, Sheriff Hodge and his men raided Benson's house. In addition to drugs, they found 17 guns. Benson had a previous felony conviction on drug and weapons charges, so was forbidden to own firearms.
You knew that you'd go to prison?
Probably for the rest of my life.
Were you scared? Were you anxious?
Oh, yeah, I was terrified.
Because?
My world was over.
During the raid on the house, Sheriff Hodge found Benson's bank statement. There was $600,000 in his checking account alone. Despite appearances, this self-described meth abuser was a millionaire, heir to a publishing fortune. The night of his arrest, Benson says Sheriff Hodge offered him a deal. If he cooperated, the sheriff would see that Benson was represented by his old friend, attorney Ron Reynolds.
I'd heard of Ron.
And his reputation was?
He could get things fixed. He said, I'll guarantee you misdemeanors, no jail time, but you're going to have to move out of Kentucky.
Did you think he was on the up and up?
Well, no, if he was on the up and up, he wouldn't have been able to do that.
How much was his fee?
$150,000.
$150,000 is a lot of money.
The rest of your life in prison is a lot of time.
Rick Benson says he was also forced to pay the sheriff $10,000 in cash and make a donation to the sheriff's department of $25,000.
That's enough to make you say, okay, what's going on here? But then whenever you see the actual cashier's check in that file where he donated $25,000 to the sheriff's department as a condition of his plea agreement, that's just, that's crazy.
With information on that case and others, Samantha and Adam pressed Sheriff Hodge for an interview. He reluctantly agreed.
He was just all relaxed, leaned back in his chair, being that good old boy.
So the sheriff thought it was a field trip?
Yeah, you got this little out-of-towner girl and this 20-year-old college kid. We played along, we played nice for a very long time, let him lie.
In the course of that interview, legally recorded without Sheriff Hodges' knowledge, Adam asked him about the gun seized from Rick Benson, but the sheriff's answers didn't match the facts. He claimed the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, had them.
I don't even know who Rick Benson is.
He was a big case.
Oh, that's ATF, yeah. How many guns was it?
17.
On Rick Benson?
Yeah.
They would have took those. I tell you, you probably need to have an ATF agent here with me if you want to talk about it.
So I need to ask them if they got those guns.
Well, you just need to ask them about the whole case.
So when the sheriff said he'd given guns to the ATF, you knew it was lying?
They never took the guns. They never even opened a case in this situation. And once we had that, you got a heck of a story.
I was like, wow, I can't believe he just said that. He just kept lying, and I was giddy.
What do you make of that? The two 20-somethings
right,
with pens and notebooks could do what seasoned law enforcement officers couldn't do.
They weren't dangerous to him. I think Lawrence was thinking, hey kids, let me show you how the sheriff's department works. Here's the jail, and here's Barney, and everybody from Mayberry. But they caught him off guard because they'd done their research.
The reporters then filed what's called an open records request, requiring the sheriff to show where Benson's guns were stored. But 6 days later, Adam received a startling phone call.
The sheriff's department's been broken into. And that gets you out of bed real fast.
That was my we got you moment. I knew that he had staged it. I knew it.
Sheriff Hodge claimed guns, drugs, and other evidence had been stolen. The office was trashed, but the doors showed no sign of forced entry.
It's just made to look like a burglary so they could explain for why the drugs and guns had been missing, and they'd been missing for several years.
So what was Sheriff Hodge doing with these guns and drugs?
Guns, gave them to political friends, sold them, traded them for oxycodone.
He became a drug addict.
Yes, he was a very serious drug addict. He had a bad addiction with prescription pain pills.
Adam and Samantha's interview with the sheriff and the phony burglary gave law enforcement the break they needed. The man who once thought himself untouchable was now feeling the heat. Days later, an undercover officer recorded Sheriff Hodge threatening to kill Adam.
He said, "I'm going to effing kill him." And the informant's like, "No, you're just mad." And he goes, "No, you don't understand. I'm going to kill him. I've already been by his house. I know where he lives."
Despite the threat, the Times-Tribune continued to publish damaging allegations against the sheriff, and a state audit suggested he may have been stealing money from the department.
He was just taking money and cashing it, and during convenient times like before a 3-day weekend or right before his wife's birthday.
By May 2010, the people of Whitley County had had enough. They voted Sheriff Hodge out of office. 6 months later, he was indicted by a state grand jury. The most powerful lawman in Whitley County led away in handcuffs in his uniform. But Lawrence Hodge still had influence. Around the same time, 2 local thugs, friends of the sheriff, drove to Adam's house.
The passenger in the vehicle gets out, approaches me without saying a word, puts his hand a little bit into his waistband, and I just quickly pulled my pistol.
You had a pistol on you?
At that point, I didn't go anywhere without being armed. He saw that it left the holster. I didn't point it at him or anything. And he explained that they were out looking for junk metal on my dead-end street and that they would be going now.
You pulled a gun. Were you prepared to use it?
Well, you never pull a gun unless you're prepared to use it.
Following that encounter, federal authorities compelled Adam to leave town under their protection. Already facing state charges, Lawrence Hodge was also being pursued by federal investigators. Central to their case was attorney Ron Reynolds, the sheriff's accomplice in the shakedown of Rick Benson. Reynolds turned on his old friend, implicating the sheriff in the extortion scheme. Lawrence Hodge had no choice but to cop a plea.
Prosecutor told him, "We can put you in prison for a very, very, very long time. Our case is solid. You will be convicted." You could see that he was defeated.
Last May, 2 years after Samantha and Adam launched their investigation, former Sheriff Lawrence Hodge pleaded guilty to extortion, distributing drugs, and money laundering. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. He declined our request for an interview.
Yeah, that's mostly from the work that the two of you did, right?
Yes.
Samantha and Adam's reporting also led to the conviction of 15 of Lawrence Hodge's associates. Both journalists have since left the Times-Tribune. Samantha lives in Oregon, where she's editor and publisher of a small weekly. Adam, just a year out of college and unemployed, remains in Whitley County.
What went through your mind when you saw Sheriff Hodge in handcuffs in his uniform?
You know, a lot of people thought that I would be jumping for joy and, all elated there that the sheriff got arrested. And it's really not. It's terrible that this happened. I hate to see it for my community. Mm-hmm. I hate to see that plastered all over the place. Mm-hmm. Whitley County, synonymous now with a corrupt sheriff. I don't like that. I think the real story should be that a bunch of people here came together and, cleaned it up.
They've been pointing north for some time.
They're in here causing all kinds of problems.
That was Richmond in Franklin County.
This is probably the largest heroin bust that I'm aware of in the county.
And then there's Lexington. A heroin ring arrested at the Hyatt last year. A total of 198 heroin arrests in the city. Much of the source, a 5.5-hour straight shot from here. Court documents show that 1 out of 6 people arrested on first-degree trafficking and heroin cases in Lexington since January 1 claim the hometown of Detroit.
Heroin in this area tends to follow that I-75 corridor from, Detroit down.
And with the recent spike in Lexington violence, 6 murders and 20-plus shootings since June 11th.
Illegal drugs are largely fueling the violence on our streets.
So we headed up to the place known as the start of the heroin highway, where the violence, we're told, is born and grows and leaves.
If you're seeing an uptick in that in Lexington, Kentucky, just look to Detroit. Look at that history. It could be what's driving it.
Former FBI Special Agent Andy Arena and former Detroit police officer Lyle Dungy, both now with the Detroit Crime Commission, took us for a ride through the east end of Detroit.
This is where they do what they do.
An area referred to as the Red Zone, run by a gang called the 7 Mile Bloods, where getting out of the car to shoot video was out of the question.
You'll see the red spray paint.
That's them.
Yeah.
They ride with windows cracked, easier to hear screams and gunshots.
It's the reality.
Obvious signs that we need to leave. We stopped, though, in a safe zone to talk.
You saw it for yourself, those guys flashing gang signs at. So there were at least 2 situations where we drove by where there were known gang members, and they saw us, they saw your cameras, and they weren't happy.
And we went by, you said we went by the first time, not too much of a concern, but the second time was when they were wanting to know why we were there.
The first time they're looking at you, you know, who are you? The second time they're basically challenging you. They're throwing gang signs to alert you who they are. You know, the third time, who knows? There wasn't going to be a third time. We're going to put you guys in that situation.
But most of the drive there was no one to see.
This whole block might be gone.
Just burned out homes or nothing.
I used to do a lot of raids in this area, and back then it didn't look as bad as it does now.
Dungy and Arena say work they've done to stop drug trafficking on these streets has pushed some of the trouble out.
The Detroit police learned a lot of things. The dopers learned a lot of things.
And south.
It was a cat and mouse game over a period of years.
They say the 7 Mile Bloods are a gang known to export mainly heroin down I-75.
If you got a bunch of people fighting over the same drug trade here, take the show on the road.
And the money's better for the Detroit natives down there than it is here.
Absolutely, absolutely. The profits that can be made down south are double, triple what can be made up here. And the gangs know that, and they go down there to try to exploit that.
Lexington officials say that exploitation has slowed as of late. With drug stings focusing on heroin, they're getting a handle on who's bringing it in and the potential of the violence the out-of-towners in turn carry with them.
When you get a spike like that, it's usually, you know, there's some underlying current, something's causing it.
So much for joining us tonight. Tonight, new information on exactly how many victims former Campbell County Judge Timothy Nolan is accused of pushing into illegal activity.
In just one charge, he's accused of trafficking a minor. In another, he's accused of rape. Yet he is still not in jail.
9 on Your Side reporter TJ Parker is live tonight in Covington. TJ, can you break down the new charges for us?
Well, Craig, Nolan was here in Kenton County Circuit Court today. He's being charged with 6 counts of human trafficking with 6 victims, and there's even more charges with more victims.
I cannot make any statements. I'd love to, other than I can tell you that we have a great Constitution, and I have a great attorney.
Let's go.
We will vigorously defend this.
Former Campbell County Judge 70-year-old Timothy Nolan arraigned in court. His attorney, Margot Grubbs, defending Nolan, entering a plea of not guilty to all 11 counts in the indictment filed in Campbell County.
We have provided everything necessary in order to provide information and be cooperative in this matter.
Aside from human trafficking, Nolan is charged with first-degree rape, unlawful transaction with a minor, tampering with a witness, and prostitution. The indictment says Nolan, quote, intentionally subjected the under-18 victim in commercial sexual activity. It also says he caused the minor to engage in illegal controlled substances. Judge Kathleen Lape set his bond today.
To be quite honest with you, anybody else who had appeared before me with these charges against them would have a cash bond on them. Nolan is a mature individual. He is facing a lot of time in jail. I think that makes him a flipper.
The defense argues he's not because he suffers from a serious illness. Regardless, the judge ordered a $50,000 cash bond, no contact with any of the victims or minors. Grubbs spoke with us after court.
I think it's wrongfully charged, and that's exactly what we're going to prove.
Now, Nolan's attorney, who you just saw there, asked the judge to delay his payment of bond because he had a doctor's appointment today. Nolan was ordered to make that payment, though, by 5 o'clock. No word yet if that has been done. We're reporting live tonight in Covington. I'm TJ Parker, 9 on Your Side.
It's quite a fall from grace from police chief to accused criminal, but that's what a former top cop from a tri-state community is coming to terms with tonight. Local 12's Brad Underwood broke the story when Falmouth Police Chief Mark Posey was suspended. He went back to Falmouth today as word of Posey's arrest spread around town.
As police chief, Mark Posey was supposed to protect the public in Falmouth. But instead, the Attorney General's office says Posey was stealing public money and property from administrative funds almost the entire time he was chief. According to the indictment, Posey is alleged to have stolen more than $10,000. He's accused of forging 69 checks, some as little as $30 and others as high as $900, all coming from the County Drug Task Force bank account.
That makes me worried for our county. I mean, that's our county. I mean, that's our city, county money. I don't know. We definitely need to look better into who we elect and who is our next police chief. We don't want that again.
Posey is also accused of buying a gun with department money and then selling it for a higher amount and keeping the profit.
I think that it's crazy. I mean, it's crazy to think that someone from Pendleton County would do something like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's justice. I mean, I'm glad that he got caught and it didn't go on for much longer.
In January, newly elected Mayor Yolanda Hinson relieved Posey of duty and suspended him. In February, Posey declined his right to an administrative hearing and resigned. On the street in Falmouth, some are surprised that Posey was arrested and charged.
From him being a police chief, you would think that people would try to like cover for him and stuff. And it's a little surprising that he actually got caught.
According to the very lengthy indictment, Posey forged and cashed at least one check a month, sometimes 3 to 4 over that 6-year period he was chief. He did bond out this afternoon. At the moment, a court date has not been set. Rob?
Brad, thanks very much. If convicted on all charges, Posey faces up to 20 years in prison.
A former county circuit clerk has admitted to abusing public trust. Between January of 2014 and September of last year, Emma Adams took more than $100,000 that administrative offices of the court had given to Lee County. WKYT's Michelle Chamberlain is in Frankfort now, where Adams was in court this morning to plead guilty to the charge. Michelle?
Today in court, Emma Adams pled guilty to the charge of abusing the public's trust, and she became very emotional in the process.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
Adams stood by her lawyer, former Lee County Circuit Judge Tom Jones, as she pled guilty.
When you plead guilty, did you waive all those rights? Yes, sir, I did.
Admitting to stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from Lee County taxpayers.
Restitution in the amount of $334,845.44.
As part of her guilty plea, Adams handed over a check for $156,000.
I've got a check here for $156,106.47.
The remainder, around $178,000, is to be paid through scheduled payment plans. The Administrative Office of Court says Adams took the public's money for her own personal gain. They said she set up fake bank accounts, used fake receipts, and took money off the top weekly. All of this was discovered through an internal investigation by the AOC. Adams was asked to retire amid the findings, which she did last August. The charge against the former state employee is considered a Class D felony with a maximum sentence of 5 years. Her sentencing hearing is set for April 1st. In Franklin County, Michelle Chamberlain, WKYT.
Now, prosecutors recommended Adams serve 90 days, followed by 5 years probation.
Car went by probably 70, 80 miles an hour.
I saw, the Lexus coming through, like just blazing. So I got over. I figured they were in a hurry or something.
Just moments later, as those men watched, that Lexus barreled through a red light at 9th and Main, T-boning a silver-colored Porsche. 3 juveniles jumped out of the Lexus and began running, but just as quickly, they were taken into custody by officers with the downtown area patrols. Police say the group had just carjacked a woman in the parking garage of the Galt House. It was a 12-year-old, they say, that held her at gunpoint around 6:40 Wednesday night. His accomplices were a pair of brothers, ages 13 and 16. 2 of the suspects were taken to the hospital. So too was the driver of that other car who had just left work at Zermatt. Steve Scrobot, who witnessed the crash, says it's incredible more people weren't hurt.
You could hear the engine rev in the car as he flew by. He definitely wasn't worried about slowing down.
And Jason Langley, who had pulled over just 1 block before when he noticed the speeding Lexus, says he feels fortunate he wasn't involved.
It was a relief. It was a relief. Like I said, it's just nothing but God and God's grace.
And back here live tonight, Rick, Vicky, we do not know what charges those boys will face yet, but we just spoke with folks over at the Galt House, and they assure me they are stepping up security tonight and in the days ahead. Reporting live for you tonight from LMPD headquarters, I'm Lauren Adams, WLKY News.
Human trafficking is on the rise in Louisville, Kentucky this week. The reason? The Kentucky Derby. Criminals try to take advantage of big events like this as many potential customers come to town seeking prostitutes. Mark Martin has more.
The Kentucky Derby is known as the greatest 2 minutes in sports, and for many it evokes the sounds of hoofbeats and My Old Kentucky Home. To human traffickers, the city and its famous horse race are simply avenues for exploitation.
We have high rates. We have a serious problem.
These pimps, our handlers, look at it as a way of making fast money in a one-day or two-day event, and they're going to double and triple what they normally make. So they'll bring these girls in from all over.
Louisville Metro Police and victims' rights groups monitor websites known for adult escort advertising. They estimate postings on these sites for Louisville have tripled this week leading up to the Kentucky Derby.
And before Keeneland Spring Meet and before the Derby, women and what we believe to be our children are advertised as fillies and mustangs.
Sergeant Andre Bottoms says the prostitution human trafficking rings are set up in hotels in every part of the Kentucky, Indiana areas surrounding Louisville. Bottoms estimates about 10% of the hundreds of prostitutes in Louisville this week are being forced or coerced. After each prostitution arrest, police look for signs of trafficking.
Then we change course, and at that point we treat them as a victim and not a criminal.
Teresa Flores is a survivor of human trafficking. She founded the organization Traffic Free, which helps build awareness through what's called the SOAP outreach. SOAP stands for Save Our Adolescents from Prostitution. At national events like the Kentucky Derby, the outreach program distributes thousands of bars of soap to high-risk motels in the area. The soap is wrapped with a red band that gives the National Human Trafficking Hotline number and asks questions like, are you being forced to do anything you do not want to do? Mark Martin, CBN News.
With 1.1 million members, and the problem is growing.
That's how the FBI describes our nation's gang problem, which is still plaguing the Louisville area. Tonight, WLKY Steve Tellier investigates what's being done to stop it.
The FBI says 2 out of every 5 gang members are juveniles under the age of 18. Local officials are somewhat reluctant to discuss the specifics of Louisville's problem, but earlier tonight we introduced you to a mother who lost her teen to violence, and she has a message for other parents that the local gang problem is deadly serious. His mother says Antonio Tharp Jr. was an A student headed to the University of Kentucky in the fall of 2008. The 19-year-old already had his student ID when 3 days before freshman orientation he was gunned down. His mother says he had become part of a culture of crime, drugs, and guns.
He was into coming in high, or, smelling like liquor. The fascination of being with a handgun, to think, okay, I'm the boss, no one's gonna do nothing to me.
Terry Tharp says her son was part of a clique or a crew, but that he believed he was in a gang.
We are actively investigating the suspected gang members.
According to the latest FBI report, there are between 1,000 and 5,000 gang members in Jefferson County.
As far as our community having a serious gang problem, no.
Serious, no, according to LMPD, but still a problem. We first told you about the department's gang database 5 years ago. At that time, it contained information on more than 2,000 gang members. Police say that database still exists, although they won't release it, citing hundreds of active criminal investigations.
We do that purely for analytical purposes to track certain movements and groups that may be suspected of being involved in activity, of an illegal nature.
And kids are involved in that activity. The FBI estimates 2 out of every 5 gang members are under the age of 18, and many are seated in classrooms across the country. Is there a gang problem at JCPS?
No, there is not.
JCPS officials say they don't allow any gang activity on school property, part of an aggressive no-tolerance policy.
We train our principals on what to look for. They know what gang signs are, gestures, clothing, graffiti.
All are banned from Jefferson County Public Schools, but school officials say they can only do so much.
If someone thinks that their child may be involved in gang activity, they need to put a stop to it immediately.
They're kids. They can't raise themselves. We have to be parents. We have to do this together.
The most important thing to prevent your child from being in a gang is for the parents at the house to look for the signs.
Things like a preference for a particular color or logo, use of hand signs, a nickname or street name, behavioral changes, drug and alcohol use, criminal activity, and an association with others doing the same things. Terry Tharp says parents are key to preventing even more teens from being pried away by gangs.
It's time we take over. You know, we need to let our children know this is not what life is about. There's more to life than this.
Louisville police used to have a gang intelligence unit that was abolished after the merger, but police say that doesn't mean they have stopped fighting gangs. That responsibility is now shared between the narcotics unit and the patrol divisions. And police say Chief Robert White has recently poured even more resources and personnel into that narcotics unit. I'm Steve Tellier, WLKY News.
3 men are facing nearly 24 charges each after a pair of February shootings in Lexington. Devontae Cobb, Jake Jones and John Harris are facing charges including wanton endangerment and criminal mischief. Court documents say Cobb and Jones fired shots into several homes on Hedgewood Court at 2 different times on February 28. The first shooting was just after midnight. Police say a home was shot 19 times. Documents say it was in retaliation for a teen not joining the group's street gang. The second shooting happened around 6:30 that night. Witnesses say they saw a group of people running down the street shooting. Nobody was hurt either time. In the second shooting, multiple homes and vehicles were damaged. One bullet also hit a natural gas line, causing a gas leak which forced a building to be evacuated. Court documents show that during the course of the shootings, a total of 14 people were in danger of being shot. Harris' arrest citation says he used his grandfather's car to drive the accused shooters from the scene.
Thank you for tuning in to GospelInsiderNews.com. An Eastern Kentucky pastor was arrested last weekend accused of being part of the state's biggest pill trafficking organization. Scott Gilliam is the pastor at the Holiest Tabernacle Church in Olive Hill, Kentucky. Police say Gilliam was using the church as a stash house and that they found almost $70,000 worth of prescription pills there. The police say the pastor hid the drugs inside of the wall of a room that looked like a playroom for children. The arrests are the result of a 1.5-year-long investigation called A Sheep in Wolf's Clothing. He was arrested last week along with Brian Logan and charged with a conspiracy to distribute oxycodone. One officer explained that Gilliam was running a multi-million-dollar trafficking organization as there were tens of thousands of pills with a street value of $40 to $45 each. Federal, state, and local authorities were all part of the operation that put Scott Gilliam and Brandon Logan in the Carter County Jail on Friday. Well, what are your thoughts about all of this? This is Tamika Hall for GospelInsiderNews.com. Now that you know the news, don't forget to spread it.
Caldwell, Executive Director of Citizens Crime Watch of Miami-Dade County in Florida, and a member of the National Crime Prevention Association's Board of Directors. Today I'd like to talk to you about starting your own Neighborhood Watch. Neighborhood Watch is a program that asks neighbors to be the eyes and ears of law enforcement and also in joining each other to better take care of their neighborhood. Beyond the day-to-day crime prevention, Neighborhood Watch groups help the neighborhood strengthen their quality of life as well as securing the safety of each neighbor. Since 1972, Neighborhood Watch has meant residents looking out for each other, working together on neighborhood problems, and making their communities safer. Members learn how to work with law enforcement and report suspicious activities to their local police or sheriff's office. It's not hard to start and sustain a Neighborhood Watch. Take the first step to get the entire community involved by recruiting your local law enforcement to host a safety event where you can then speak to all the neighbors about starting a Neighborhood Watch program. Holding regular meetings and developing creative and useful activities that can keep your neighbors engaged. Neighborhood Watch also allows members to get the word out about what type of safe community initiatives are available in the area. For example, Celebrate Safe Communities is an initiative designed to provide support and resources that reinforce neighborhood crime prevention efforts. Throughout the year, these events are used to educate and empower the local community. Programs such as Neighborhood Watch can help those communities learn to respond appropriately to any particular crime trend that might be affecting the community. Every neighborhood is different and has its own set of crime issues, but one thing we all have in common is that everyone wants a safe community. A Neighborhood Watch can help you work towards that goal.
For thousands of how-to and advice videos on any topic, visit monkeysee.com.